Valorant patch notes 5.07. Let's dive into it. So, agent updates. The Valorant character design team is constantly discussing the state of the agent meta and wanted to make some changes to sharpen some of our agents. I'll just zoom in a bit here. And role definitions. We're in a bit more of a stable state since champions and game changers teams will have decent time to acclimate before the game changes world championships takes place. When it comes to duelists with a flash ability, many of them are outclassed by some of our initiators when it comes to generating kills for themselves off their flashes. Skye and KO are often better at taking aggressive 1v1s than agents than we expect to be able to thrive in those scenarios like Yoru, Phoenix, or Reyna. These changes are intended to increase the total team play output of Skye and KO when they are coordinated plays with their teammate and decrease some of their efficacy when played alone. We also hope to increase the reward of putting more time into mastering their flash abilities. We believe that initiators should still be able to make solo plays, but they should ideally be working on their duelist counterparts in these scenarios. I've mentioned this kind of thing before. Very, very correct. Needed to happen. Probably should have been this way the entire time, to be honest. But either way, that is okay. So Skye. So yes, we've talked about these. This was shown on the PBE. Basically the flash duration is changing a bit overall in terms of it's longer now if you spend more than 0.75 seconds throwing it out. But if it's shorter than that, then it is only a 1 second flash. Was it not 1.5? Either way, 1 second, very, very short if you don't do that, but a very long flash if you go over this mark. So very interesting. It can no longer be shot and destroyed, and the unequipped time is longer, and also new things to go with the new gameplay intent. Okay, so kind of what we already knew. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was 1.25, the same as KO's, but they've changed it even more for Skye to come down, which is interesting as well. So KO, kind of same thing. Underhand goes down, overhand goes up. Same unequipped delay as well, so exactly the same. Reyna, obviously is getting better with her flash, so there's no range restriction. The wind up is decreased, the near sight unequipped delay is decreased as well, so kind of the opposite. But the duration is also decreased from 2.6 to 2 seconds. So basically you can throw it out faster and you'll get your gun out faster, but it's a less longer in duration. Yoru, basically they just increased their flash visual updates. I think so. So this is something where, you know, when an enemy is flashed, but they kill you and you're like, yeah, but his face was yellow. He was flashed. They've changed this so that there's now a thing behind the enemy's head when the flash starts to fade. Rather than their face being yellow, it'll be behind their head that was yellow, which kind of tells you that they actually could see you in that moment, which I think is a good change overall as well. So that's something. Map updates. This is, to me, the bigger thing overall. Still think Skye and KO will be pretty good, by the way. Reyna will be a bit better in ranked. I don't think she'll see pro play. Yoru got a tiny bit better. I don't think that's enough either, to be honest. And so, yeah, that's the agent changes. But Fracture, this is big, okay? And I wanted to take a look at the whole of Fracture. I wanted to take a look at the whole of Fracture and what was going on here. So, with Fracture before, you can see here that this is a very closed, tight-knit space, but now, holy moly, look at how open this is. This is crazy. This is a massive, massive change. I also want to hear some of their reasoning. Open the cubby up to make it easier for attacking side to hold against defenders' aggression from both directions. So this is basically saying, like, you know, you could breach stun down here, right? You could just send a breach stun in here and, you know, just completely destroy, you know, Neon comes running in, stun, ha ha ha, dead, right? Oh, dead. But the idea by opening this up is, oh, breach stun, you know, well, I'll just stand here, or I'll stand here, right? Oh, those neon stuns, oh, it hit there and there, well, I'm over here, so I'm fine, yada, 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 like, right? So that's what this is about, basically. Just making it easier so that when you're, you know, pushing out as the defenders on the attacking side, it's easier, basically, to counterplay that. So the B-side jump has been changed to a ramp directly onto the side platform, which should make moving around that space more straightforward. This one I think is just more of a quality of life change, of course. There isn't too much going on here. They probably just thought, that jump is a bit annoying and it doesn't make too much sense. Let's just make it a ramp. B generator. Space here tightened slightly to make smoking this spot easier. Small corner has also been removed to simplify attempts to re-clear the site. So this was what it looked like before, and this is after. So it looks like this box... this space here overall is just a bit smaller, making it easier to smoke, which was a problem because when you smoke this area, there was often just like a little gap you could see through there. So that I think is a good change. Where's this little corner that they're talking about? What am I missing? Oh, this. It's this here. It's like a little game of spot the differences. So yeah, so when you're coming out of here, I guess, you know, someone could be in there, and now this is just like one less spot. I think that's what they're talking about. So yeah, makes some sense overall. Defender spawn, remove the small Koi to slightly simplifies those retakes. Okay, so this little thing here isn't there anymore. So this should make it easier when you're like, you know, retaking from this way and you've completely lost this A site. Right now, no one can hide in this little space there. So that's good. A-holes, improved movement and simplified the space in A-holes by removing a corner. Okay, so that's what it was before. And so again, this has been widened out overall. So as an attacker, you can no longer, like, I guess, hide in this space if you wanted to. So now it's going to come down like this, but there still, I guess, will be the other corner. But this has just been simplified a bit. I don't think that's a massive change, shouldn't impact too much. My simplification of the space is part of the overall changes to the surrounding areas. So basically the box just goes to the corner. Is there anything else here? I don't think so. Again, it's like a game of spot the difference. The box just moves to the corner. Shouldn't have too big of an impact overall, I don't think. A dish. The dish is intact but removed the far path to make moving through this space more direct for both sides. We found trying to control these spaces simultaneously was unnecessarily difficult for all. The team hopes the changes here on A-drop will encourage everyone to use this route more often. So this is like one of the major changes, right? So this whole like going this way section is removed and now it is just a straight path. Now if we just take a look at this, because it's quite an interesting little path in and of itself here, right? You've got, as you come up as the attackers, I also think they widen this a bit as well. But as you come up here as the attackers, you can't quite see round this corner, right? So like this edge of the wall here, I think might be a bit of a common ratty spot for defenders to play in. I also think like a sage wall is big enough to block this off as well. I think a smoke will be big enough to block this off, to be honest. Definitely a viper orb, but probably the other smokes as well. I'll have to test it out, but I would guess that will be the case. And here as well, right? If you're just defending the ramp instead, you can put a smoke as the defenders across like a space like this to stop them getting further up there. So definitely, I think, a help for the defenders to defend this initial space, right? I'd say this has got more defender-friendly overall in that it's simpler now. You know where the attackers are coming from. And this will probably be a common dueling ground. I think in general, this space will just get used a lot more because it's simpler now and people, you know, will understand that overall. Yeah, we'll see. Okay. Drop. The drop is no longer a 50-50 check when entering, which should make it a little more appealing as a way for attackers to squeeze a site from two sides. So this again is one of the other massive changes, right? So we've got the change here, you know, the old drop, and it's becoming this, right? So it's kind of been moved further back. I said in my initial look at this that this is a very interesting corner, in my opinion, because I don't know what like a brim or omen smoke looks like in this area. And whether you can, if there is a way you can smoke it off efficiently with no gaps. That to me will be a big question about how this part of the map plays. A Viper Orb, you know, put somewhere like here, should be big enough to cover it all. But I don't know about the other smokes. We'll have to see. Because that might impact quite heavily what is meta and what isn't on this map. But as you're coming down here as the attackers, you know, now you have a choice basically. You can try and jump over here and just isolate this way, or you can drop down this way with this protection and just look that way, right? So that's kind of the idea behind these changes overall. I think it's a really good change, and it'll make drop kind of a much more appealing way for the attackers. So basically what's happened with those two major changes is this first part of drop got more defender sided. This will be harder to take for the attackers, but then coming down from drop onto the site will be easier for the attackers to actually get in onto site this way. So it's kind of like a bit of a 50-50, right? Some for the defenders, some for the attackers. A-Rope. This path has been a little too easy for attackers to control with a single smoke. The adjustment should give defenders more options for both the initial hold and retaking A. Watch your step. So again, this is kind of the third, I would say, major change that we saw, which is the add of this little vent spot here. So as they say, before what would happen is that you would just smoke off this and you would run down here and you'd be good. Now you cannot just smoke off this. And there's only two effective ways, I think, of dealing with this. A Viper wall across here, right? Just across the whole thing. Could be somewhat useful, maybe. Or a Sage wall that comes in like this. It probably won't go across the whole thing, but something like this, right? And I think that this is a big change for a Sage. And the drop change as well, potentially as well, because a Sage wall now is better on drop than, you know, like it's an effective way of covering off drop completely if that's more of a viable option. Also now Sage gets this as like the premier way of dealing with this, because you have to think, if a defender comes up here, starts destroying this side of the wall, well, they still can't come on the vents if there's still these two segments on the other side, right? So, you know, again, the Sage wall up on here is a very strong way of like coming through sands still. I think it's the strongest way of coming through sands. And in general, this will be worse for the attackers, because if you do just put a smoke in there and you're running down here now, there's nothing stopping them from just, you know, flash here with breach or whatever, you know, run out this way. You know, there's no reason why they can't, and, you know, you'll just have to figure it out, I guess. So to me, Sage got better in this area. I think in general, a lot less teams will be attacking through this area because of that, because when you come out, even if this is smoked off, you still have to worry about the higher angle and the lower angle, which is never a great spot to be in. It got a lot less attractive overall, and as they talk about the retake as well, you can come all the way out here and see pretty deep in onto sight as well from this corner. So very, very, very good overall, and those seem like the main changes. So to me, as we see, they have some progression updates as well, but I'm not sure that will... Oh, it looks like you can favorite stuff and things like that, which is fine. To me, the big change is the fracture change overall, and if I had to do a meta prediction, well, let's actually go and check out the agent pick rates for that on champs and see which ones we think will rise or fall. So if we take a look at the different pick rates for some of the agents on Fracture, then Chamber was at 100%. I don't really see that changing too much. I think still Chamber will definitely be good on Fracture 100%. Fade was at 30%. Now, with the opening up of that space towards Arcade, maybe a Fade Haunt in there is a bit better than it was before, you know, as it reveal more space. But overall, I don't think too much has changed for Fade, but she'll still be good, I think. Viper is one that, as I say, with the little vent across, maybe putting a wall on there, the orb on drop, if that's the only smoke that can cover that whole area as the defenders, then Viper might see a bit of an uptick in play rate. I wouldn't be surprised if this got a bit higher overall. If that is the case, don't know right now. KO at 35%. I don't think too much will have changed for KO other than the KO changes. But again, in like top level play, you know, with coordinated play, I still think KO will be fine. Maybe in ranked games, KO is a bit worse. Omen, I don't think anything changed for Omen aside from he got worse smokes on where the vent is and where that rafter is, and maybe on dish and towards drop. Maybe actually an Omen defending that side. Maybe there's a decent flash window there. I'll have to think about that. We'll have to see if that is correct. Raze might get a little better, to be honest, because I think in general what these changes are saying is there's maybe going to be slightly less defensive aggression, which, you know, I think the defensive aggression favors Neon more than it does Raze. I think Raze will be a bit better at holding the site, you know, in a more normal way. So maybe if that is the case, you know, we might see a slight uptick for Raze and a slight decline for Neon, but I don't think it'll be anything too crazy overall. Maybe there's even a lineup for Neon that you can get the Neon wall across the vent. I didn't think about that, but that would be interesting. If you can get the Neon wall across the vent, that might be one way of trying to like cover that entire area off and then blitzing through. Breach will still be good, although maybe a bit worse with the changes to Arcade. Sage, I think Sage would be my guess as like the big riser overall here of the agents that might see some play. I think Sage is kind of the main one. Brim will still be probably the main pick for smokes, and then as I say, Neon might come down just a tad.